Hey, Troy.
40.
Great.
That's good.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. No, depending on where you happen to be in the country. We were just talking about that because Pat Burns is out in Fredericton. So for Pat, it's afternoon for sure. I actually wrote some notes about how I wanted to start today's session. So I hope you'll all bear with me. Sometimes I miss a few things, and so I actually wrote them down, and I'm going to read it today just to make sure I get everything in. So, welcome all to the May program of IMCC. That's information. IM Canada Connect is what the long version of that is. Sponsored by Western IM and supported by the RIM community across the country. And thanks to all of you for that. The Canadian ARMA chapters provide a segment of Canadian RIM content when available, which makes up some of our annual program. We add content as well from there based on topics that are interesting to many of us in the RIM community across the country. Today's program is a panel discussion called You Are a Smaller Organization. This is for you. And I'll set the stage for that after I get finished with my rest of my stuff here. Please put any questions you have into the chat and let us know where you're from and whether you identify with being in a smaller organization. Or maybe you're even in a large one and you feel somewhat alone in the rim position. That's never happened to any of us, right? You're the only rim person in the organization, and even if you are a seasoned veteran, sometimes it's overwhelming to be in that position. Before I paint a picture of today's topic, let me thank a few senior management people at Western IM. I don't do this very often, but I'm going to do it today. Uh, I don't do this, oh, I said, but I thought I might do this as well. If I go to the right place in my notes here, it'll be all good. Troy Sawyer, who most of you know from all the IMCC sessions. Troy's the Director of Development at Western IM, and he sets up all the sessions and manages them from behind the scenes every month, every month, every month, Troy. Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
He's somewhat familiar to all of us, I'm sure, from all the IMCC sessions over the last 5 years. Brian Hines, our GM, you don't see Brian very often, but he not only is he the general manager of Western IM, but he also does the marketing material development and makes sure that it gets out to a list of people that have signed up to receive it every month. If you don't see Daryl Schrader, our director of professional services very often, but he works behind the scenes with the rest of the management team to support all of this as well, as the Western IM support. For those who would like to be on the list, but aren't at the moment, go to the westernim.com website to the community section where you will find recordings of past IMCC sessions. And at the bottom of that section, you will find sign up for Learn with Us. If you're an ARMA member here in Canada, you're hopefully also getting information from your chapters as well. Now, to thank our panelists today for whose CV information is in the marketing material, but I'm going to ask all the panelists today to give a quick rundown on themselves before they actually start to speak. Uh, they, find the right place, are Donna Malloy, Pat Burns, and Nicholas Fonseca. Now, Nicholas isn't quite on yet. He had another meeting previous to the panel discussion here, so he'll be on as soon as he can do that. Donna and Nicholas are both from Edmonton, and Pat is from, as I said earlier, Fredericton. Lovely Fredericton. I am happy to say that they are also longtime friends of mine, which is important to me, as well as seasoned RIM professionals. Thanks to all of you on the panel today, and last but not least, thanks to the ARMA chapters and the RIM community across Canada for your support over the last 5 years for all these educational offerings. Without all of you, we couldn't get this done. Now, let me paint a picture of the session starting today with a position that many of you may be in across the country. That is, you may be an IM trained individual, but are new to RIM itself. Now, that can be threatening and punishing as well when you have lots of education, but you haven't been in RIM for very long and you don't really get it or you don't really understand how it all fits together yet. I remember when I started in RIM, and that was well over 30 years ago, and how easy I thought that was going to be until I actually jumped into the frying pan and found out how incredibly difficult the RIM profession actually is. Or you could be someone in your organization that just came to you senior management maybe, or somebody came to you and said, you've been voluntold that you will now be doing records management and maybe privacy as well. And you have no formal training in RIM, and either way, you feel absolutely overwhelmed. Since I'm on the panel, I'll do a quick introduction, nothing dramatic. I'm Rick Sterling, and I'm the president of Western IM. And I've been in RIM for over 30 years. And the only real important thing I think is, to me anyway, in my CV is that I am an ARMA fellow. To me, that's really an important thing. And I'm really, really happy to have been selected as an ARMA fellow. Donna, I'm going to turn it over to you. And Nicholas is now on. So welcome, Nicholas. We're just getting started. I'm now turning over. I'm tagging Donna. Tag, you're it, Donna.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rick, for the handoff. So, my name is Donna Malloy. I actually went through a library school program at UBC and took archival training as well as part of that program. And at that time, there was one records management class that we could take. And so, I was fortunate that somebody showed me the ropes in terms of my first contract role to do records management. I was doing a records inventory for the city of Nanaimo. And so it was a great learning opportunity that someone took me under their wing. But I do feel like at times I was thrown into this. I did work as an archivist as one of my first jobs up in Whitehorse for the government of Yukon. And in that role, I had the opportunity of working with government records. But in many of my roles, I have been the only records person. And in many of my roles, I also had to start to work on policy writing, training, staff development roles too. So I really had a well-rounded career and very fortunate to have those opportunities. So, Troy, I'm going to have you bring up the slide. So, in many situations, I come across people that are thrown into the records management role and they're coming from a different background. So ultimately, their first question might be back to being assigned to this is what is records management? And I have stumbled across people that have been put in roles of leading records management in an organization. And, and I asked them, they were doing a SharePoint implementation. I asked them, well, what are you, what do you define a record? And they said, well, if you're working on it at work, it's a record. And so I thought, okay, well, there's a lot of work here. So the first thing is to figure out what you're trying to do and embrace the fact that you've been assigned the new role of doing records management. You might be a very strong administrative professional. You might have been someone that's just been tossed into this and you need to figure it out. So ultimately, there's a lot of good resource material out there. And I know other panel members are going to about that, but ultimately, your goal for your organization, they need to know that a record exists and what that record, like how to define that record, how to retrieve it, and who can access it, how long to retain it, and then what to do with it at the end of the life cycle. So this is where luckily there is a profession. I think this is a discipline to do information management. So the opportunity is to sort of figure out what your first steps are. And so my top part of the presentation is going to talk a little bit about the high level strategy work that kind of sets the stage for you to not feel so overwhelmed. So, next slide, Troy. So, have you done anything to identify some strategic priorities? And when you're put into a role, it's very helpful to be able to scope out what you're going to hopefully achieve. So, I find out pretty quickly on in a role, like what is it that I'm going to try to accomplish so that I don't feel like I'm taking on a massive undertaking. I try to figure out, well, what are the most important things to do first? And I think it helps me with stress management and change management to do that. So I also figure out the resources that I have. And some of that is figuring out who your allies are. And I like the term allies because what I'm looking for is people that rely on records. So my allies are always a person that's an engineer, somebody that's in finance that absolutely needs records for reporting financially. Often people in roles such as fleet and facilities, they really have an abundance of records, but they're also really reliant on them. So when you know who you've got, it's sometimes so helpful to know that you're not actually alone, that you can go to those allies and work with them. There might be a lawyer in your organization that you have that you could, connect with that has expertise that will help you in the work that you're doing. Those are the things that you want to figure out. Who am I working with in this organization that I can kind of pull upon and, connect with as a network that's going to help me be successful as I try to manage records. And then you're going to also figure out if you have any strategic linkages to anything going on in the organization. So in many situations now, I hear where someone's putting in an entire ERP system and enterprise resource planning system. There's such an opportunity there for you to get involved in something underway to really add value as a records person. So sometimes you want to figure out what are the other areas doing that I need to be aware of so that I can be an asset here. I'm going to have you go to the next slide, Troy. So ARMA International has some really great sessions that they've been doing on RIM strategy creation, and this is a slide that they provided. And I think it's a really great one for going through some key questions. And uh, Rick, I'm sure this can be posted to the website later, but these are all critical questions that you can ask as you're putting together a plan. When you're setting out, you always don't have resources for a consultant. So if you go through step by step and go through these questions under the vision and goals of what you're trying to achieve, under the external influences of what impacts the work you're doing, under the cost versus benefit analysis that might be helpful, and then also under organizational alignment so that you know that the work you're doing makes sense within the context of where you're operating. Everybody's requirements are going to be different, but I felt that this was a very useful slide for doing any kind of a current state analysis. Next slide, Troy. So the work that we're also doing, people are first. So change management, critical to any kind of strategy, changing behavior. When you're touching records and information, you're impacting everybody. You need to set out by identifying what the end users really need and making sure that the work that you're doing is responding to their needs so that you can get some enthusiasm and momentum for any of the work that you're trying to do. And then you're also wanting to know that the users will see the benefits of you having created a strategy that's guiding the work you're doing so that instead of when you get multiple requests for your time, you're able to say, here's the strategic priorities that we're doing for the organization. This is, an endorsed strategy so that I can get through the work I've got to get done in a way that makes sense to the organization. Next slide. Um, I find it very helpful, and this is something I've only done for a few years now. It wasn't something I knew about at the start of my career. Figure out pain points. This is where I think it's a quick win to be kind of listening to people and surveying them. And I have often captured through a questionnaire or a survey what is the one thing that people need changed, and asking them that so that you can gather that content up and then use that for your strategy and your current state analysis so that you can actually just really work to what's the main issue that's impacting your organization. And then um, when you're describing the benefits of having the strategy, you're sort of letting them see what you can do for them that will make sense. So when you can solve an immediate problem that they're having, often you're creating champions that will support your RIM program throughout the organization. So the next slide. So this is going more to figuring out the critical areas for consideration of what you're going to work on first, so that when you're alone or very small in terms of your capacity in an organization, you need to figure out what's going to make the most impact or solve the most critical need. And I think there's at least 5 lenses or at least 4 that you want to identify how you're going to figure out the critical areas. So sometimes you do a risk-based analysis, and I've done that. And in some organization, that is the approach to take. Depending on the organization, you might also choose to do a compliance kind of approach, like we want to be compliant to requirements. And that would be a consideration in any heavily regulated environment like oil and gas. Sometimes you're there to provide a better service. And depending on the nature of the organization, you might be filtering your decision making to how can I provide the best possible customer service, either internally or externally. And then a fourth consideration could be how do I do my work to make sure that we're using information to make evidence-based decisions. So you're focused on how do I do my job as a records manager to make sure the organization is making the best decisions with information that they can access. So, this is where you're going to figure out what works for your organization within your own organizational culture. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. ARMA has some really great tools, and I think I have other people on this panel talking about it. But one of my favorites is the maturity assessment. And I see, Ken, that you're on the call, and I know you've done this kind of thing with the city of Nanaimo. But being able to do a maturity assessment where you kind of take a snapshot of assessing where you are and then figuring out where you want to go. I know I've taken the principles from ARMA International and targeted 3 areas that I'm currently working on so that I'm actually taking what can feel very overwhelming and paring it down to, okay, what are 3 areas to focus on? So for this year, like I can say I'm going to focus on accountability. I'm going to focus on like the life cycle management, picking things that make sense for your particular organization to reduce the feeling of overwhelm and to structure yourself in a way that makes sense. And then just being able to feel like you're moving the needle a little bit in terms of maturity for your organization. I think this is an incredible tool that's available from ARMA International that can be used by you to help you get this work done and not feel like you're by yourself trying to figure out what to do now. Back over to you, Rick, to introduce Pat.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Just before I do that, I wanted to add something to what you said there. For any of you that don't know about the ARMA principles, it's on the ARMA website. I will say that there's a group of us, including Ken Oldenburger, who is on the call today, and that are currently involved in renovating or reshaping the ARMA principles for the latter part of the 2020s. It's going to be another year or so before we finish all of that work up, but that's in the process right now. So very exciting work to do across the way. Pat, let me put it over to you and let you talk a little bit about this topic as well.
Certainly. So, again, to introduce myself, I'm Pat Burns, and I'm a seasoned records practitioner. And it's almost, no, I'm not embarrassed, but it's startling, really. 50 years of experience in the workforce, and 48 of those are probably in the records and information management business. So I've seen it evolve from a very basic physical world to, technology driven digital transformation. So I've got a little bit of a spectrum, if you will. So I've seen it. I probably have seen it all, if you will. I am a certified records manager because that is what I do. I manage information. I manage content. I have an appreciation for all the other the components and the foundations of the information governance and respect and work with these folks, but that's not where I live. I live in the records world. I too am very proud to say that I'm an ARMA fellow, and we both Rick and I were inducted the same year, and so we are partners in crime in more ways than one, I guess, if you will.
Very true, Pat. Very true.
Yeah. So I don't have anything polished. And Donna, I'm in awe of your slides. I thought they were very well done. And but I want to talk a little bit about survival and managing expectations. I've uh, I guess also too is that in my earlier records and information management years, I was more of a theorist. I put policies in place. I wrote file plans for organizations. I I created retention schedules. I did inventories. And it was mostly in the physical world. But I really never took any of these processes and plans into practice until I moved from the Provincial Archives in New Brunswick to line department, which happened to be the Department of Finance, which in New Brunswick is probably one of the largest departments. It had a lot of responsibility, including Treasury Board, Cabinet, and the Executive Council. We served those as well. And really, I did fly solo there. I was the only one really with records management criteria experience or credentials, if you will. And I could not swallow that ocean all by myself. And I couldn't get resources at the time or staff to assist me with it. So it took a matter of me talking about folks and putting into practice and talking to being very bold and talking to management and saying, you know, what would happen if the information that you had was not right or you weren't able to access it? Well, that would just be the worst thing in the world. Somebody's heads would roll, they would say, but they'd say, well, there's no governance that makes people respect those types of rules. And I said, I'm going to put them in place. And I talked to them about wanting to put in place some basic governance that would make sure that every employee knew their responsibilities for record keeping. I remember going in front of the deputy ministers group with 10 minutes to talk, and that told me I only had 10 minutes, ending up speaking to all these deputy ministers for over 2 hours. And they apologized because they had to go to another meeting, but they were engaged. And it was my clue to say, okay, they don't know what they want, but they know they want it. Okay. So I thought, you know what, this is my opportunity to manage the expectations of the group and come up with some simple strategies that they can understand to help them with their day-to-day lives and to ensure that the information was being it was accurate and was being protected. We were just in the advent of right to information and the protection of personal information and privacy. So that did play a factor as well. And one of the other things that we did is, and I said, really, I would like to tackle some of these, I'll call them the legal records or the operational records that are important to the organization. And not that the other ones weren't, but things like, well, we manage the property tax in the province. We are one of only two or three provinces that do that. But this was revenue bearing, and it was important that these records be accurate. So we developed out a strategy on how to manage this information. They used old microfiche records, and it was getting antiquated. It was getting cumbersome and time intensive. So we developed out a strategy to fix that. We come up and we showed the executive the proposal, what we wanted to do, how it would work with the current property tax system, and they bought it. So they said, okay, go for it. So in the background, I was writing all these rules and policies and processes in place and identifying that and giving it to the management team, say, this is what we're planning to do. This is how we're going to govern it, applying life cycle to it. And it was a success. So you learn from that particular experience, and then you go on to another type of records. We had a check processing workflow that was was really clunky. And so, can you fix this? So from the experience that I had on one group of records that were legal and important and long-term, they started asking me about others as well. And in the meantime, what I was doing, I was persuading people to take the information, making sure that they keep it, putting a standard file plan in place. And at the time, we didn't use SharePoint, but we used shared drives. We weren't in the market for electronic records management system. We did not have the resources in place. We weren't that far along in order to create a good one or to purchase a good one to put through. But these operational records, which were case type records, really gave me the opportunity to put some of that theory that I had written into practice. And, it's not to say that it was a perfect world, because it certainly wasn't. We ended up maybe rehashing a process, uh, finding out where the right repository would be, how are we going to apply retention to some of this unstructured information. And sometimes we had to step back, 10 steps to go 20 more. So again, I never ever expected that everything would go smoothly, but surprisingly enough, it went smoother than most, I guess. Some of the things that I find as a solo person, or a person that with a small group of folks that they work with, is that you have to wear many hats. You have to be a strategist. You have to be a practitioner. So you get down deep and dirty into the inventories, and you talk to them about that. You partner with other groups. You ask for help from your records management community. Have you ever done this before? And talk to these folks. And that's why it's so important to have that collaborative and that networking from peers in our country, in our universe, if you will. Sometimes it is North America, or even, I mean, I think that a lot of the uh, things that I absorbed were even from faraway places like Africa and Australia. Australia had a wonderful governance program put in place. So you have to expand your knowledge by reaching out to these folks to find out, is there a solution for this? How can I fix this, or how can I scratch this itch that makes it important to manage, if you will. And oftentimes we look for opportunities. If there's something, and be mindful of what the organization is doing. If there's a different path or a strategic path that they're taking, be involved, ask the questions, talk to your partners in IT, in the Right to Information group, into the privacy group, and find out how we can assist each other and support each other in that. So I think there's, as I say, maybe you don't have a large component of resources with respect to human resources or people that do the operational work. You have a network that you can rely on within your organization, as well as with expanding out into other sectors as well. But I guess and then in summary, what's really taught me most is that governance is so important. Information governance is so important. Getting your retention schedules, and your file plan, your classification system, identifying, repositories, and looking for ways that we can, be compliant. I will tell you that the most recent project that I'm on now is because an independent auditor came in and said, you have no life cycle in your SharePoint sites. And so what they're doing now for me, they've said, okay, how are we going to do this? So I put a plan in place. And I was very open and forthright. And I said, because when SharePoint was deployed, we weren't able to put the governance in place. We have a Wild West out here. So in order to start clawing back and start working and rolling those team sites and those SharePoint sites back into some sort of governance, we have to have a strict SharePoint policy with respect to how it's created, how it's managed, and what criteria you need. You need a site plan, you need a file plan, you need to talk to us. And if you don't do that, you don't get a site. So those are the things I said. I can't do it without that governance and support. And surprisingly enough, I got it. I got the support that I need to do. Now, have we run into some wrinkles? You're darn right we have, because there's a lot of sites that we probably won't be able to get into a while, but I don't look at those as a negative. I look at those as that I'll move on. We'll tackle you at the very end. We're not going to, as I say, I can't boil the ocean. I can't swallow it. But what I can do is that I can pick away at it and give successes. And I also found reporting, because really the people that are asking me to do this governance are the people that I can report to and say, look, I've had a lot of success with X number of sites. I have not had any success in this particular area. And because they have no appetite. So I will report to you is that I have successfully completed 5 sites. 2 sites that don't want anything to do with me. So you find out a solution for me. So I don't take the blame for that. And I learned a long time ago, I can't let myself get defeated by the folks that don't listen to reason, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to conclude because I know I've talked probably too darn long. But I think that, as I say, since 1977, I've seen a big change in the information management business, from managing physical records and record center storage and that sort of thing, to now we're looking at data governance, aligning with the data governance folks, and data matching, and change leadership folks to move towards, a mousetrap, if you will. So there you go.
Thanks, Pat. That was great. Very insightful, Pat, as always. I thought just having heard what you and Donna said before I turn it over to Nicholas, I thought I would tell my story of starting in the records management space in the early 1990s, because I went to an ARMA meeting. Somebody convinced me I should go to, it was Bob Moran, who's now long since passed away, but Bob convinced me to go to an ARMA meeting because they had a great speaker. So I went, okay, I'll come to an ARMA meeting and they'll buy me lunch. It'll be fine. And I went to that meeting and I walked out of there on the ARMA board in Saskatoon at that time. Uh, don't ask me how that happened, but they did have a good speaker and they convinced me I should be on the ARMA board. And I'm just going to say that I was an IT guy who knew nothing about records management whatsoever. I knew nothing. You couldn't even call me green. It was prior, it was way before that. I was totally before green. And I thought, well, I'm an IT guy. How bad could records management be? It's got to be a walk in the park, right? Can't be that hard. I'm an IT guy. Some of you can relate to that, I'm sure, in your own IT departments. I found out pretty quick that that was a falsehood and a big mistake on my part. It took me 18 months to find out enough that made me less than dangerous talking to people about records management. So the only way I learned, because there was not a lot of books or anything around or education opportunities in those days, the way I found out was all my friends in ARMA. So I'm just going to give a quick heads up to, if you don't belong to ARMA, you should belong to ARMA and join the local chapter, or a chapter as close as you can to you, and start to get comfortable with the people in it, because that's where you find out the best information is from all of these people, like the Donnas and the Pats and the Nicholases in the world, that will always stop and help you along the way. And I've never had in my career in records management anybody not willing to help me. So I gotta say, it's a unique group of people in the records and information management space. Very unique. There's not another group of people I know that would never not help you in a situation like that. So just gonna say positive. Okay, Nicholas, tag you're it.
Thanks, Rick. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicholas Fonseca. I know some of you, I think I know most of you participating today, joining us. To piggyback and add to what has been said so far by Donna, Rick, and Pat, I was given a project which involved records in a private sector organization, and my background is business and risk, and they were concerned about their information risk, and one of the things they didn't have was a retention schedule, and they were doing this digital pathway project, if you will, to starting with digitizing as much as possible in the organization. So I was thrown in and had a great team, fortunately, and some of my team members were members of Pharma, so I joined. And I met Donna along the way and Rick along the way at ARMA events. And this is, it's got to be 10 years plus ago. that I first met Rick and Donna, and Donna said, we need a board member as well. And like Rick, perhaps not as quickly, but I said, yes, I'll put my hand up. And Donna said, let's have lunch. And the rest is history. Thanks to Rick and Donna influencing me and helping me make some decisions along the way, that I ended up having some success in that project and being part of ARMA. And after joining the ARMA local chapter and working as president for a while, and attending a couple of ARMA Canada conferences, I met Pat. And when I met Pat, and pardon me, my phone is ringing here. I thought I turned it off. And when I met Pat, Pat had been serving as director of the ARMA Canada region team at the time, which is a national board for those of you who aren't familiar. And before I knew it, at the next ARMA conference, I was part of ARMA Canada and the national team. And so these folks have really helped me to learn and move forward in my career in managing records and both in the private and public sector. My father worked in the public sector, and I thought I might like to do that. So here I am working in the public sector today. But having had other influences in my family, my aunt was in charge of records. My aunt was in charge of records for an insurance company, and also ran the community library when she retired from her records management role. And I learned a lot from her. And we talk about the different domains of information governance today. And I think if you have an interest in the various domains, it's really going to help you as you move forward in your career. And ARMA's got a lot of content to share in those areas as it pertains to information governance. So, there's always that legal aspect. And I've heard from Donna and Pat talking about, maybe you've got someone on the legal team you can make an ally. And I'm fortunate to have had that in a couple of my roles, as well as folks at the executive level as well, that will help support you through the projects that you have. But having a good understanding of what's there, what's in front of you, and where things are going as well is going to be helpful. So we've got lots of background information. You've got great people on this panel who have Donna, Pat, and Rick, who've been on involved in records for a bit longer than I have officially been involved. But when we think about what we are doing as well in managing records, we're also managing information risk. So when you think about it from that perspective, records today, we need to think about things like changes in privacy legislation that are going to mean that we have to tighten up how we handle and protect those records as well. And think about things like cybersecurity threats. And we'll see that some private sector regulators already have in place some assessment tools and guidelines and requirements if there is a cyber threat, that an organization that's governed by that or regulated by that organization has to follow, as well as we're seeing in Alberta in the public sector, new privacy and access to information legislation in Alberta introduced in 2025, and compliance to some of that needs to be in place in the next few weeks. So if you're in Alberta in that particular field, you want to be working to finalize that. We also have the opportunity now. In my first role, in records, one of the things I had to do was come up with a retention schedule, which was so intimidating at the time. Today, I would say, I should have thought it's so easy, it's hard. And again, you do have a lot to consider. It's a little easier when you've got some experience and knowledge behind you, and folks in here on the call can give you a lot of direction and help with that. But as well, you want to think about how can you contribute to your organization in areas like data protection, privacy. How can you assist with, of course, making it easier to find records, but also making sure that the records are available to those that need them at the right time and when they need them. As things progress and move very quickly, as they are happening in the world around us right now, you want to start thinking about what does AI mean for us? And how do we work with AI in records? And how can we leverage AI? And that's going to be something that your organization is going to have to consider at an individual level. The AI train is moving, and it is not going to stop for us. But again, we do see changes in legislation that address when you're using automated systems or AI, what needs to be done in terms of notifying, but also protecting the rights of folks whose personal information you have. And when you think about beyond that, you also think about algorithms that are created by AI. What's that going to do for us? So there's this opportunity for, if you're in records management, to expand your knowledge, and ARMA conferences are great places for that, to learn more, but also IMCanadaConnect, as you're part of IMCanadaConnect today on this call, and learn with us as well. And ARMA chapters have events that are put on, and ARMA International has a virtual exchange for Canada coming up in June as well. It's going to have some speakers as well presenting. Again, an opportunity for you to learn, but again, the world is spinning faster, I want to say, and things are changing faster. So we want to be able to keep up and to be able to provide support to those that we serve. And again, as Rick said, we are happy to help to answer questions and help you move through. Organizations are becoming even more cognizant, if not proactive, in moving forward with using AI. But again, thinking about the challenges that we're going to face from rapid digital transformation, and how can we leverage that in the work that we do in records management, information management. There's this opportunity to learn more. There always is that opportunity to keep on learning. And do we have the skills? There are learning opportunities where you can enhance the skills that you have, and to be able to think about, where protection of information, and we're going to speak a little about privacy here, needs to be embedded into business strategy. Organizations have strategic plans and enterprise risk management plans, but is there a piece for enterprise information and records management as well? Is privacy in there? Is security of information in there? And so at the governance level, there is a great opportunity for you as practitioners, records managers, to contribute to some of that discussion and have that seat at the table. And as a subject matter expert, I'm sure that, in your day-to-day working in the weeds, you'll probably think about, hey, we could do this better. How do I present? And you have the right folks listening to me, so that you can give that input and be part of the process. I think effective information risk management isn't just about eliminating risk. It would be great if we could eliminate all risks that are out there. It's about reducing the exposure. It's about controlling the information. It's about improving resilience, being proactive in making sure that we're doing that, and making sure that your organizations are enabled through the talent that you bring and the skills that you have, making them operate more confidently and efficiently in today's fast-paced, AI-based digital world. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. But again, to thank Rick, Donna, and Pat for their mentorship over the years, and including me in some of this discussion today. And Don, I know there was some other stuff you wanted me to add. So if you still have questions to throw at me, please do.
I wanted to say just before because we're 3/4 of the way through here. I wanted to kind of define what a really small organization looks like in Canada. Because I talk to everybody all over the country, there's a lot of, let's say you're a small municipality, and let's define small. You may or may not have an IT person on staff. You may use third-party contractors to do IT if you're really small. You don't have risk people. You don't have privacy people. You don't have a legal department. Everything that happens legally in the organization is external to the municipality, and you just don't have any people to do things. However, you're still subject to freedom of information requests and things like that generally in any province you happen to be in. And that's a really small organization. And what I see happen a lot is somebody in management wakes up one day and says, "Holy darn, we got to get somebody to do this stuff because we're supposed to be doing it and we don't have any records management. I don't know what that is, but we don't have it. And we don't have anybody doing this privacy thing either. And what happens if we get a freedom of information request? Well, what are we going to do?" And then they go looking around, they put their blinders on and they look around in their local organization, which may have only 5 people, 3 people on staff, and they go, let's pick somebody to do this job. And they go tag you're it to the administrator or the somebody else that's able to file a document in a filing cabinet, maybe, just because that seems like records management to them. And then the poor person that's tagged with that goes, now what do I do? I have no background in this. I'm already up to my neck in jobs already. I'm wearing 32 other hats. How do I deal with records management? And that's kind of what I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit at the end of this is in my mind, it's like, okay, I know I said join ARMA, and that's my number one thing on the list. My number one checkbox is try to get management to get me authorized to join ARMA. And then I can talk to some people that actually do this for a living and ask questions. The other thing I think that I've seen to be a really positive piece of education for those people that come in with no knowledge of records management at all is there is a certificate course that ARMA International has that's a certificate in records management. And it's not a, certification. It's not a, go to school for 32 weeks kind of thing. It's a certificate program. And I see that that's very, very popular for those people that have been thrown into the fire, so to speak, as somebody mentioned earlier, throw your feet are in the fire and you don't know what to do and you're not sure how to do it. And just joining ARMA is not going to help me in the next 2 weeks. So I need some other way I can get some education on that. So that's kind of my thing is I've seen people go to the ARMA certificate course in records management and it seems to be very popular across North America. And joining ARMA, of course, in the first place. Other thoughts from the rest of the group on what do you do? What do you do when you don't know what to do and you don't know where to go or where to turn?
So, Rick, I'm really impressed by a lot of the training resources from AIM, and I see Shelley, you're on this call, but I'm very impressed by the catalog of opportunities available through AIM, which is, very commendable to help the community, and that is a different association, and we're not ignoring AIM, but I think they have some great learning opportunities there that are virtual. So there, it's no longer required to travel. It's no longer required that you have to make yourself available for a certain time frame to do a class. You could actually sign up, and seems very affordable to me. And they even offer a membership where an entire team can get trained. And I think that would be very helpful. Where I see that going to answer some of what you're saying, Rick, is that frequently departments will have a records representative. Like there'll be someone that's sort of within a department, like there's a main person that's trying to kind of keep a program together, and they're also doing the access to information, and they're also doing privacy, and they're also often doing, city clerk roles or some other business need for the organization, and they're kind of the enterprise person. But then there's people within the actual departments that are also, as part of their job roles, supporting record keeping. And those people frequently have no training at all either. So if you don't have time to get learning yourself, how do you have the time to teach, 3 or 4 people that are also trying to do this too? So I think that there's opportunities to maybe point to other resources through other organizations such as AIM that could actually have valuable material to share too. And that would be very helpful. I know that many of the technical schools like NATE in the past and SATE have records management training. People have accessed those in Alberta, and they've been very good for getting some practical training on how to manage information.
Great, Donna. Thanks.
I want to add also too that I take advantage of a lot of free offerings that some of the partners of ARMA International and AIM as well do. For example, next week, I believe, or maybe it's later on this week, there's uh, a session that Access is doing, and it's called aptly. It's a coincidental. It's this week. It's Flying Solo: Survival Strategies for a One-Person Records Management Shop. And I'm thinking, you know what? Why not take a listen? It's going to take an hour. You may find, that there's some really good information there and nuggets. And I would say ask your ARMA chapter, ask your ARMA board, look, I have this problem. I have this massive amount of information nobody seems to want to do anything with. What are my options here? You may talk to somebody who's dealt with defensible deletion at one time, or, and say, look, this is what you've got to do. Just have someone lead you and mentor you, coach you onto going through. I find networking is so important in this game because it gives you some practical advice, if you will, on a particular problem.
Thanks, Pat.
If I can add to that, Rick, sorry, did you want to go ahead first?
No.
No. If I can add to that, there is so much opportunity learning, out there for us. And for those of you in Alberta, I host a summit focused on information management in Central Alberta, and folks in the public sector attend because it's focused on public sector. But if you're in the private sector and interested in attending, it's an in-person event with networking opportunities as well. And this is not necessarily the only opportunity that you'll have to learn and network. And I've attended some sessions that are focused on the education system, that are focused on the education industry, and been part of those sessions as well, and also been part of the School of Library and Information Studies Schools Council, and again for the MLIS degree program, and seen how that has rolled out, and how much overlap and opportunity, if you will, for folks who are in records management or aren't necessarily in the traditional library space. That there's lots of learning opportunity out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I've heard, get in touch with your ARMA chapter and seek out those opportunities as well.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat there too, that from Genevieve about she has an MLIS and from and the U of T Records and Information Management Certificate. Is it worth going out and getting a CRA or CRM designation? Now, I should ask Pat to do this because Pat used to be the regent of the ICRM, so she was the poobah for the ICRM itself. So, Pat, do you have an
I
answer?
did. I really did. And one of the nice things about being involved in the organization as a regent, it gave me an insight of the amount of care and dedication that these folks do towards keeping current with certification, keeping current with technology and whatnot. As I obtained my certified records manager designation in, I believe it was 1990. And what it did for me is to say, because I had so much experience before, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go through the study group. I'm going to take on and ask for a mentor, which I did. And what it validated for me is that some of the practices and job activities that I did really, had some merit and had some value. It validated what I knew. It also brought me back to the basic records management components: inventories, classification plans, records retention schedules, things that all those foundational things are so important to know. And trust me, when any one of those components, it can align with classification, security classification, with privacy classification, retention or governance and risk. There's so much that all relates to, but you got to know the basics. You got to know where that comes from. And so I would say yes, definitely so. And to Genevieve, I would say that the effort is really good, but since you are a U of T graduate, you may be eligible for the Certified Records Analyst designation right away. I think what you need to do is that you need to show your certification, and you have a letter from the school to the ICRM, and I think they would designate you as a Certified Records Analyst right off the bat, which would allow you to take the time to move towards the Certified Records Manager designation. So anybody who's looking at that sort of thing, I would think that it would be important to do. And I guess I see that Irene is on the panel or on the group as well, and I believe Irene is also a certified records manager. So yeah.
Yeah, if I could just add some value to anybody that's thinking about that educational side as well, is and not because I helped write some of the stuff for the IGP certification for ARMA, mainly because I think there's even a business case that could be made for taking an IGP certification for someone in a small organization. I mean, a really small organization, because they don't have IT staff, they don't have risk people, they don't have security people, they don't have a lot of those kind of disciplines as unique hires in a small organization. Wouldn't it be useful for a person in a small organization of that ilk to have that experience of all of what those disciplines, those different disciplines actually do? And that's really what information governance is all about, is that kind of melding of records and information management, IT, security, risk, legal, and so on. So um, uh, take a look at the information governance professional certification at ARMA as well, if you're looking for further education. That's just me.
Just to add a little bit more to Pat, though, I have a couple university degrees, and I never felt that the CRM was going to help me because my decision that I made was to get involved with ARMA. My decision was to publish some papers. My decision was to get involved at the conferences as a chance to keep up. My decision was to participate in webinars. It's all based on your time, and there wasn't a financial benefit to me to having my CRM. But for anybody that I talk to that's come from something where they don't have a master's level university degree, where they don't have that, significant academic background, but like you, Pat, went through the ropes of years of experience and the, school of hard knocks, I would absolutely suggest to them getting a CRM because they have the practical experience that gets them through that program, in a very good way. Whereas someone that has a master's degree, and you've got the iSchool stuff too, it's a different scenario completely than someone who has, doesn't have any academic credentials at all, like no post-secondary education. So it all depends on your particular career needs and what your goal of having the CRM is. Pat, there's also a maintenance requirement to keeping your certification. So this is a long-term commitment when you get into
Mhm.
a certification that you're going to keep your credits up through various training and education. And so if
Mhm.
you're not going to do that, then it's not a good thing to get.
It's not, but it's a lot easier to maintain your certification with the CRM and the CRA than it is for other designations as well. What I do have to say, and I'm going to answer the question that was asked, believe it was uh, maybe to Peggy. One of the things that the ICRM does, and they have an examination regent who there's a board of like individuals, and they renew and they update their exams every year. And they're committed to doing that. And it's one of the toughest weekends you'd ever want to put through to review these and look it up. But we also rely on folks from other, or we call them our partners, if you will, the security folks, the the data governance folks, that sort of thing, in order to bring the exams into modern day and the emerging technology. So to pay, you're right. Like with respect to kids don't, I mean, they know their alphabet. I know they know their alphabet. And you know what? Surprisingly enough, they probably rely on it more than they think. However, I understand with the computers and technology and that sort of thing, but I really truly believe that the ICRM works with the current technology and update their exams. It's not antiquated and it's not old. So keeping that in mind. And one of the nice things about maintaining your certification is that you are required to have X number of hours experience or learning in order to bring that. So you, as a long-term in CRM in good standing, are kept up to date. That's why I do these things. This is why I go to ARMA conferences. This is why I read and I take all these webinars in. They all count towards maintenance agreements. So yeah, and you know what? I totally respect the fact that people with a higher education, maybe post-secondary education, and even undergrad or higher, they probably don't feel the need to it. But I think you have to respect both paths, if you will. I know that in this job that I am in currently, CRM was a criteria to be a certified records manager. Did it get me the job? Maybe it did. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that it has helped me immensely. And I did it on my own. I didn't have an employer force me to do it. It was something that I wanted to do my own. So just keeping that in mind, I think.
I came out through a different route. I did an equivalent of an associate's degree in a professional designation. Then I did a bachelor's. Then I did a master's and starting it on a doctoral program. But I can tell you, once I was given the task to create a strategy for a records management program, I needed those basics. And then I needed more than the basics. And that's where I needed some of the material that my staff who were taking the CRM were able to share with me. And I was able, when I bought the material for the CRM for my staff, I started flipping through the material to learn. So I think there is equal opportunity for everyone. And
Yes.
I think it's important for us to learn as much as we can. And yes, those designations are required in some roles.
Well, we're over time. To respect everybody's day, and I want to so much thank my friends on the panel here for their expertise. This has been wonderful. It's been a great panel discussion, and thanks, Troy, for keeping us all rolling here along the way. And thanks to everybody that showed up today on the session. And we'll look forward to getting information out for June's session when that information is ready. So stay tuned and sign up for the list on the Western IM website if you want to do that. Everybody have a great rest of your week, and thanks so much again. Talk again soon.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.